So this is what we've got to work on today. It may look like a John Deere 7020 with dualies, but it's not. Nope, in actuality this is a mess. That's what it is, it's a mess. Allow me to explain. So, I was plowing just down there by that grain bin last month, December 15th or so. And it just so happens that this thing died there. After some investigation, I found that the fuel filter was nasty and full of garbage, so I changed it out, hoping that would fix it. That didn't work even after I bled the fuel system. So the next thing I found out was that by loosening the drain bolt right there in the bottom of the gas tank, I discovered that the gas tank has a good solid inch at least of compacted mud and dirt and ice and rust in the bottom. So that really stank. So I had to rig up this and little 5-gallon tank of diesel with a little fuel line here, hooked up to the new fuel pump, because the next thing I found out was that the fuel pump was pooped. So I had to replace the fuel pump, although I'm not entirely sure if the old one was that bad. As it turned out later, we still had the same problem after replacing it, so it might have actually been something else. But it's still good to have a new pump on there, because the old one was at least questionable. Anyway, so even after all that, it still wouldn't run. And one day, while I was coming out trying to get it to run, because it was stuck in our driveway for that entire time, that entire month, I came out and I noticed that while working on it, I had bumped my shoulder multiple times up against this and tore those two wires off of this unit here. And that unit is essentially the unit that sends charge back to the battery from the alternator here, if I'm not mistaken. And so with that, I had to constantly be running a gas generator to keep the battery on this thing alive while trying to start it so that I could get it out of the driveway where it was stuck. So the next thing I had to do was I loosened out, I don't know if you can see it because it just snowed on top of the thing, but here on the injector pump, I loosened out the governor bolt quite a bit, because for some reason when I loosened out the governor bolt, the engine would run and actually stay running just barely. It was running just barely well enough to keep going, and so I was able to limp it back here into the yard where it is now, because, like I said before, it wouldn't stay running unless I had that governor bolt about halfway out. So now here it is parked back up where I can work on it at the Quonset, and I've got the new part to go on the alternator. Just came in today, or last night, but I'm gonna have to replace that. But I also finally found what I believe was the fuel problem on the injector pump itself that was causing the tractor to overall not run. And let me show you that. So I spent the better part of 3 weeks trying to figure out where the problem was in the fuel system. And this is the first time I've ever worked on a diesel engine in my entire life, so it took me a long time to figure everything out. But what I did end up figuring out from asking a question in a Facebook group dedicated to old John Deere tractors, and got some ideas from others who've had the same problem, was to check the fuel return on the injector pump. And they said if it had a check valve, and if that was stuck, you'd never get it to start. So I did check it, and here it is. This is the fuel fitting for the return. As you can see, that's the check valve right there. That little ball in there, sort of that ball shape, is spring loaded. And this whole thing was packed with rust and ice. So I took it apart, cleaned it out with good quality penetrating oil. Well, first I stuck it in the ultrasonic cleaner to break down everything that was on there. And then I used the penetrating oil and a brush and scraped all the rust out of there that I could possibly get at. Now today I'm going to put this back in the tractor and see if that was the problem. Because if that was actually the problem, the tractor should run again. And if the problem's somewhere deeper in the injector pump, which was suggested by another person in the same Facebook group I was in, then I'm going to need to take the injector pump off. And so I'm hoping it was just this return being, you know, gummed up to the end of the world. It was so gummed it would take a nuclear blast to clean it out without someone actually taking it apart and scraping it out. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do today, as well as install that new alternator part that will charge the battery. And then there's a chance I can get the tractor started and push some snow. And if that proves to be the fix, then I can worry about cleaning the fuel tanks out next so that it can run on its own tanks instead of the auxiliary tank. So as you can see there, I just threaded back in that fuel return fitting with the check valve. The check valve went on this side, the inside here. So that's got that back together. Now I'm going to set about taking off this, which, if you can see it here, is a bolt here. Let's see, bolt right here, and another one right here, and another one on the opposite side from there, back here. Basically just 4 bolts. So I'm going to pop those 4 bolts off and take it out. Okay, so as you can see, I've got that part installed. All the plugs are plugged in, and I am going to try starting this tractor now. Okay guys, it's a new day and I'm back at the tractor. So I'll fill you in on what basically ended up happening with it last time. I started it up and it still had the same problem there after cleaning out the thing here that people thought was the issue in the post I posted online that they were advising me. And so I figured something else out. They mentioned that this was actually a fuel tank return line. And initially, for whatever misconceived notion I had, I was thinking that this line actually returned fuel to the fuel pump from where it hooks up here on each one of the pumps here. I assumed somehow that it let fuel down through here and back into the injector pump, but in reality it comes from the injector pump. I'm not entirely certain why it's hooked up to these. Again, I don't know a lot about diesels, but what I can tell is that at the very end of the line, here it is, back here where I'm touching, it goes around to the other side of the tractor, and let's hop around to the other side there. There we go. This is the line I was looking at on the other side, right here. Comes down through here, around, and then plugs onto the fuel tank. So apparently, it is a fuel tank return line. So what I need to do is figure out if this fuel tank return line is plugged anywhere else, because that would give me the exact same issue I was facing earlier. So I'm going to start just kind of investigating. Starting with the other side, I'm going to start taking everything apart all the way down the line and looking for plugs of ice or rust or anything else. I guess first thing I'm going to do is take out this small section of fuel line here, and we'll see what happens. So I was able to take apart the fuel line that connected the return right here with this upper part, and I was able to take this bleeder cap off, and I was able to slide a little wire through the piece of fuel line and slide that same piece of wire carefully through here. It met with no resistance and didn't push out any rust or ice or junk, so I can assume those are clean and move on to the next section of cleaning out different fuel tubes. I'm going to go around to the other side and see if the place where it attaches to the tank is all plugged up. Alright, so I took this end off the tank here, and it seems like it's clean. I checked it with the wire and everything. So I'm going to go back over and start taking the threaded caps off of the injector plugs and see if I can find anything there. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can start it. Okay, seems like what I did worked, because now it's running properly again. So here's what I did. Off camera I was fiddling with a few things just to see what I might find out, and what I did was I removed the actual check valve here, because I took it off and looked at it. There's actually new rust underneath the valve there, so I removed the check valve, threaded this back in with no check valve in it anymore, and as you can see, it's leaking a little fuel because I haven't torqued it down properly yet. I was just testing it. But with that check valve removed, it runs. That's all it was. The check valve right here, apparently, as far as I can tell, is what's causing my problem. And without the check valve, it will run with the timing in full advance, but it should actually run. That's the important thing. Even if the timing is at full advance. So what I'm going to do is kind of clean my tools that are sitting off on here, clean them off and put them somewhere safe, and then I'm going to try to start this and see if it'll actually drive a little, maybe push some snow, just to prove to me that the problem is actually fixed. Alright, well, that was it. It was the dirty check valve that was doing it. So that means that by removing that from the system, it now is functional. I'm going to have to replace it, but I think I can use it for a little while for the time being. Anyway, so I gotta say thanks to those people in the 4x4 Tractors Facebook group that gave me the advice, because that is right where the problem lied, or that's right where the problem was, and I couldn't have done it without your guys' help, so thanks. Well, that's it. It's running. A month of trial and error and learning how these diesel engines work, and a lot of grief and a lot of pulling out of the hair. It's finished. At least next time I work on a diesel engine, I will kind of sort of have an idea of what to look for, as long as it's an older engine anyway. Make sure to like, subscribe, and tune in next time, because there's obviously going to be more things breaking down, and so the channel will continue.